Hey guys, I'm Dimension Jumper, and today I'm doing my top 5 favourite things from Tears of the Kingdom. Now, Tears of the Kingdom, compared to Breath of the Wild, I feel like is a lot better in some regards, some of which I'll be talking about in this video. And I think it's mainly because Tears of the Kingdom helps expand a lot of the things that Breath of the Wild might have been lacking in. And in this video, there will be some mild spoilers in this video. So if you haven't beaten the game yet, I would say go and try and finish the game, and try and then come back to this video after you finish the game, because there will be some mild spoilers in this video. So for number 5 is new enemies. Now in Breath of the Wild, we only had, I would say, 4 or 5 enemy variants, because we had goblins, moblins, henoxes / downoxes. We had the Lionels, we had the Lethal, and that was pretty much it. But in Tears of the Kingdom, there are new variety of enemies, not just the goblins and all the other enemies that we got to see in Breath of the Wild. And I feel like the enemies in Tears of the Kingdom help you with combat a lot, because a lot of the enemies, new and old, help you figure out, okay, this enemy has these weapons and this kind of attack pattern. What can I do with these weapons that I have on hand to counteract them? And even with the old enemies in Breath of the Wild, they have extra attacks and stuff. So, for instance, for example, the bogoblins, their horns on the top of their heads, they've grown, and now they can do a sort of tackle attack, where they just rush at you and basically just use their horn to hit you. That's a really interesting way of making old enemies feel fresh and new. And a lot of the new enemies are really cool, because you can find them in various parts of the world, whether it's in the Sky Islands, the depths, or in Hyrule itself. That's really, really cool and interesting. For number 4 is customizing the paraglider. Now, the paraglider in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom is really useful. It's probably one of the most useful key items in the whole game, or in both games. But in Tears of the Kingdom, what you can do is help customize it. And the way you can do this is by doing a side quest given to you by the dye shop guy in Hateno Village. And what you will need is a reference, and once you've given them that reference, you are then able to customize your paraglider. And what I love about this is that you can have your paraglider look like anything, depending on if you've got the specific fabrics for it. Whether that's from enemies, from some of the creatures around the land, and as well as some other fabrics that are designed from previous Zelda games, so Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, any of those games. And that's really cool, because that means you could just have your paraglider look like anything, and just in terms of customization. And yeah, and I think that helps just having that bit of freshness to it into the paraglider, because the original design is nice, but I feel like there could have been more to it in terms of when you were playing in Breath of the Wild. And I do like how in Tears of the Kingdom you're given the option to help, or be given the choice to customize it to your own likings and stuff like that. For number 3 is better dungeons and bosses. Now, the dungeons in Breath of the Wild were basically just cut and paste, because all the divine beasts were just, think of a shrine but larger, and instead of just activating the main terminal or going to the end straight away, you have to fight a boss, and those bosses were basically blights, which basically, again, copy paste, but with a different title and different design wise. And the only different one, I would say, was Hyrule Castle, and you could basically just go there whenever you wanted. And in Tears of the Kingdom, the dungeons in this game, as well as the bosses, feel very different, and they don't feel the same at all. And I feel like each of the dungeons correspond really well to their respective areas that you go to. And I do really enjoy the boss fights. I feel like the boss fights are fun and different, and they're not just a copy paste in terms of how the blights were. And I think with the way you fight the bosses, they're really interesting and fun. And again, like with the dungeons, they are obviously a unique part of the area that you're in, depending on where you are in the game when you're fighting the bosses. And yeah, I feel like this is what Breath of the Wild could have done, but I feel like Nintendo was running out of time and felt they probably felt like, oh, let's just copy paste the dungeons, make them different in slightly different ways, and that's it. So yeah, I'm really glad that these dungeons and bosses in Tears of the Kingdom are far much more better and more fun to enjoy and fight against. For number 2 are the Sky Islands and the Depths. Now, the Sky Islands and the Depths were kind of shown off in the trailers, in the very first teaser trailer for Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, back when it was known as Breath of the Wild 2. It was shown off a sort of cave underground area where we saw Gandalf. And then a few trailers later we saw the Sky Islands, and I feel like the Sky Islands and the Depths are really interesting, and they kind of help move the plot along in some aspects of the game. And I do like how they feel different to not only themselves but to Hyrule, the grand map of Hyrule. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, you just had the map, the general map of Hyrule and the Kingdom of Hyrule, and it was just okay, just go here, there, and everywhere. But with the Sky Islands, you can just, as well as the Depths, you can just go to any of these wonderful locations and just explore and fight new enemies, collect new materials, and do everything like that. And I feel like with these inclusions, they make the game not only larger but more interesting to explore, as well as much more cool to fight and find new enemies, new monsters, new characters, that kind of thing. And I feel like the Depths and the Sky Islands are really interesting and they're really fun to explore. And for number 1 are the hand abilities. Now, the hand abilities I really enjoy. I feel like they do a lot of really cool things. For instance, the Ascend ability, I do enjoy using that ability. That's probably one of my favourites. And I do like using the other abilities when I can, like the Ultra Hand. I think the Ultra Hand is useful when you want to like do shrine puzzles, or you want to make your own sort of Zelda themed car, in the sense that you can just make your own car made out of bits and bobs you find around the world. And then you've got Fuse, which is really cool. I do like Fuse. I didn't use it that much when I first started the game, but then towards the end I started using it more and more, and the weapons I could fuse with other weapons just became like godlike in terms of the attack points I could do were insane. And I feel like the Fuse ability is probably one of the most insane abilities that there is, because you can just the amount of possibilities in terms of fusing different weapons together is limitless, and you can have as many weapons as you can fuse to each other, and that gives you more attack points, and that's really cool. And then you've got Recall, which I think is another awesome one, and with Recall you can just turn back time on specific objects, and that's useful for when it needs to be, I feel like, because I do like Recall. I did use Recall a couple of times, though a good handful of times throughout the game, and it's one of those abilities, it's useful when it needs to be. So I think all of these abilities are nice for when you're fighting against particular bosses, or when you need them for puzzles and stuff like that. So yeah, overall I'd say that the hand abilities are really cool to use and just nice to have some fun around in. And it's a nice way of saying, okay, we can't use the runes from Breath of the Wild, let's have different abilities which might be similar to some of the runes, but let's make them different in that sort of way. So yeah. So that's been my top 5 favourite things from Tears of the Kingdom. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and see you in the next video.